everybody. Welcome back. Time to move on to chapter 2. The first paragraph is basically just a recapturing of the last chapter, talking about the different elements of theater. So take a quick glance at that if it's been a day. Moving on to the audience, and theater permeates our lives. So we all have quotes in our lives that we remember, like "That's no moon, it's a space station," from Star Wars, maybe epic things that we remember from epic movies. But theater has actually permeated the way that we talk every day. Maybe there's certain things that you've heard, such as these three quotes: "It's all Greek to me," "Wild Goose Chase." These are actually from Shakespeare, who is our most quoted English speaker. You don't even know where it comes from anymore. But if you click on these wonderful little things here on the side, it'll kind of give you some interesting insight. I love the Wild Goose Chase one. Maybe give that a look when you get a second. You can use that later. Get a little giggle out of it. Okay, so how did theater come about? I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Croods. My family absolutely loves it. But the dad, Kronk, absolutely uses this. He uses his hands to make paintings on the wall, tells his family story time. They all have the most horrible, tragic endings, all of them. But it does show and represent that this goes back to the times of the cavemen, where stories were told. They started to share culture and explain things, and this is the way they brought up their children, to explain how they got the cave, or how to do things. Origins of drama. So think about maybe certain rituals. I was just at a wedding this weekend, and there's just certain things that we understand as a society, and maybe not all just Anglo-Saxon traditional weddings, but all cultures. When two people come together to share their lives, there's certain ways that you know how to behave, things that you understand. These are what rituals are. We're gonna sit. We're gonna pay attention. At the end of this, some two people are getting hitched. So this is all part of these traditions. So we all, in a way, are part of this. When a baby is born, there's certain things that are done. When someone dies, there's all different kinds of ways to handle that. Whether it's a life celebration, or if you have a funeral, or if there's a spreading of ashes. There's all kinds of ways that you can do it. But this is where there's an audience. There's something being done, and that's actually part of the rituals of drama. It's an interesting way to look at it, but it is definitely. Good to note. Which comes back to this whole ritualized storytelling. They go on to talk more about it here. Certain things that you're just familiar with. Now, the war dance of the Haka, I love this. If you see these little videos down here, definitely take a look there. That's a you just only certain people can do it. It's held for special occasions. It's really kind of intimidating to actually watch somebody do it. If you guys are familiar with Lord of the Rings, it took place they did all their filming in New Zealand, which is part of the Haka, and they actually did that dance for the lead actor and the director. The natives of New Zealand did that dance, and it was a thing of honor to be done, to know these things that are passed down from generation to generation and held for times of great respect. The Native Americans and their folk dances. We go on a little bit here later to talk about these were theatrical things, yes. They also were thought to have, they're part of religion. So if I did a certain dance, it might bring on the rain, or it would please the gods. So the performances, we also talk about audience. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But the idea of chanting, of doing a dance, of doing something for the pleasure of others. So sometimes your audience might be other people, sometimes it's just your family, sometimes it might be the gods themselves. But done for an audience is really the key point that you'll see coming back again and again. Don't forget to do these little assignments here. I'm sure you guys have figured this out by now, but where it says print this out and bring to class, obviously that's not a thing. You will submit it to Great River Learning, and I will be able to see it. So, and that's how you'll get your points and grades there. So don't feel like you have to copy that PDF or email it to me. I should be receiving those. I'll let you know if something goes wrong with that. Okay, so yes, here we go. We're talking a little bit more about the audience. There's just certain things as an audience member that are just interesting because you've got communion, right? So we're there as a group. Now, if my kids put on a performance, it's just me and my husband sitting there. But if you're in a bigger group to see things, there's also a synergism. Now, synergism more talks about the fact that there's a whole bunch of things going on that are coming together that are more than the sum of their parts. So you've got energy coming from the actors, you've got energy coming from the people that work there, you've got energy coming from the audience who all bring different backgrounds. But that's kind of the idea of the audience. And be familiar with that. Without an audience, again, what's the point? Participating. I love this because really it's up to you. Some people are just quiet audience members, and that's perfectly fine. I know as a director, the thing that I like to direct the most is comedy. And something that I'll do is the last week of Tech Week, I will bring in people that I know are laughers. I know that they just love to belly laugh. They are not shy about it. And it's really good because your actors, your performers feed off that. If nobody's responding and you're trying to be funny, kind of kills your soul a bit. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty rough. So I try to bring in people that can put in those laughs, and my actors know when to stop, and be able to like pause for laughs, as we call it, so that people can follow along. And the participation and that energy is great. So, and it's also something you have to remember that you're responding as an individual when you watch something. So you're responding to yourself, but when you hear other people laugh and you think something's funny, you're going to be more comfortable laughing. So you're experiencing this not just as an individual, but you're experiencing it with the whole audience. And I know, like, when I get choked up, sometimes I'm looking around like, am I the only person crying? Am I alone? You don't want to feel alone, but sometimes it's okay to just experience that the way that you're going to experience it, because we're all bringing different things in. There's certain things in a show that you're going to relate to that others may have absolutely no ability emotionally to relate to. They can kind of sort of see, but they don't have any empathy. So those are just interesting things to know when you go and experience a show. What's the audience like? I have to tell you, matinees can be the hardest ones. Those people are just, it's the middle of the day, but if you get somebody who's been through a work week and they go to see a show on Friday night, they're exhausted. Maybe they're a little bit more vulnerable and be able to kind of go there a little bit more for the show. So make note of all of these. The suspension of disbelief is wonderful because you have to remember that when you come into a show, you're remembering, I agree. I am putting myself here going, I'm just going to take this at face value. Obviously, if you shoot somebody, you're not really killing that person. At least we certainly hope not. I'm not going to die. This is all just there for entertainment. It's not real, but I'm going to choose to connect with it. And remember that all audiences are all diverse. Now, theater used to be mostly for the upper class. So you're looking dominantly white people with a lot of money, and so the stories and even the musicals that are back from the early era, they're geared towards that demographic because they want to make money. You have to make money. Again, this is a business. However, now we're seeing more and more all classes, all types, all socioeconomic backgrounds, diversities, cultures, everything's starting to get represented, which is wonderful because you are getting to experience a writer's portrayal of something that's completely foreign to you. You can only go there so far. You haven't actually been there before, but it's another step closer to understanding another culture and being able to appreciate it. So giving yourself that vulnerability and exposing yourself and other people to that sort of art is only going to broaden your horizons, make you, more well-rounded in every way. Lecture, sorry. Remember, yeah, we've got all different kinds of audiences. Now, something I used to tell when I was in my doctorate program to other, doctorate researchers, and I would say, be careful about being so scientifically minded that you can't communicate what you are researching to the layman, because the people who are going to fund your research, probably people who don't understand all the fancy jargon. You've got to be able to take intelligent work and be able to make it so that just anybody can understand it, because if people don't care about it, they don't understand it, they're not going to fund it. So when we talk about different groups of audiences, this isn't just limited to the theater per se, but if you're trying to get somebody to buy something that you're selling, or you're trying to get funding for research, anything where you're communicating a message and there is an audience, being aware that they're all bringing something different into that room, and you can assume, it's very hard to assume anything. You've got to be able to meet the audience where they're at. So there's definitely different kinds of audiences. Even if you don't go into theater, chances are you're going to be on stage at some point, and communicating your ideas, and remembering, in a way, it is a performance. Oh, I love this. Down here, take a look at some of this different kind of theater, you guys. Now, there is some explicit content. So, if you've got little ones around, maybe not open that right now, or find a time where it's, just you in the room, so that, we don't need to be offending anybody. But again, expose yourself to some of this. It's really different. And I think we just hear so much about the classic American musicals. We forget all this great stuff is out there. So take a look at that. You may find something you truly connect with. More things that you need to look at, submit. Getting all those done. How do we respond? So this is something you're going to have to do. You have to do 2 critiques in this class. So please pay special attention to this section. This is talking about criticisms, which I'm going to post later. I don't want you worrying about that exact moment. If you're having trouble finding a way to go and see a show, if you're here in Corpus Christi, I got you covered. I can send you stuff that we've got going on here. If you're like, no, I live in this teeny tiny place and we have absolutely no exposure to any kind of theatrical performance, let me know and we'll see what we can come up with. Maybe the best thing that you can come up with is a kids camp kind of presentation. Let's talk about that. I'm not going to say no, but let's talk about what that's going to look like and the perspective and you need to come at when you look at something that is totally children. Okay, so this kind of, again, looks at the criticism. Just read through this. I'm not going to bore you with it, but please go through, look at the first, second, third points. This is all going to come up in your critiques. You're going to need to know this information or you're going to definitely refer back to it. All right, and that takes you to your quiz. So I'm going to cut it off here. Thank you guys so much. Good luck getting all this done, and let me know if you have any issues. Thanks so much.